We live full-time in our DIY smart van, and we rely on our Victron Electrical System to keep us powered no matter how far off the grid we travel. It was also important to us to be able to monitor and control our Victron Electrics from anywhere using our home automation platform, Home Assistant. If you have a Victron Electrical System and use Home Assistant in your vehicle or home, I'm going to show you how you can integrate Victron into Home Assistant in 4 super simple steps. That's right, you should be able to have this up and running in like 2 minutes. But Mike, didn't you make a 40-minute epic step-by-step tutorial on how to integrate Victron into Home Assistant using MQTT? I did, and let's call that the manual method, and I'll link to that video down below. But if you're not up for a bunch of custom configuration and writing YAML, then I'm going to show you a Home Assistant integration that makes integrating Victron into Home Assistant super simple. Let's call this the automatic method. We'll talk about the pros and cons of each approach later in the video, but first, watch closely, because this is going to go quick. Step 1, search for the integration in the Home Assistant Community Store, click Download. Step 2, navigate to Developer Tools and click Restart. Step 3, head over to Devices and Services, then click Add Integration. Step 4, find the integration, add your IP address, and then click Submit. And just like that, all of my Victron components have been added to Home Assistant, and entities have been created for each device. How easy is that? If you didn't catch that, don't worry. We're gonna go step by step a little bit slower, but I just wanted to show you how super simple this approach is. Before we dig in, I'd like to thank top-tier Smarty Van members. These folks make this kind of content possible, and I really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel directly, click the join button down below, or just hit the subscribe button so we can keep showing you how to make your vehicle or home smart. All right, first, we need to talk hardware. The use of this Home Assistant integration requires the use of a Victron GX device. In my case, that's a Servo GX. A GX device sits at the core of a Victron system and communicates with all of the other Victron components and gathers their data into a centralized place. A Servo GX also includes things like tank level inputs, temperature sensor inputs, digital inputs, and relays. And all of these things can be controlled and integrated into Home Assistant. All GX devices run a firmware called Venus OS, which includes an MQTT broker that allows us to observe and control our Victron components. Be sure to enable MQTT on your GX device in Settings, Integrations, MQTT Access. When I made my first Victron video, where we manually configured those entities via MQTT, I was running Venus OS 3.11. Just after that video, Victron released Venus OS 3.5, which included a completely revamped UI as well as some new security features. Well, I've finally upgraded my Venus OS to 3.66, which is the latest version as of the release of this video. Though I can confirm this automatic integration will work as far back as version 3.11, but there are some minor caveats because of the way the MQTT server worked in older Venus OS versions. If you can update to version 3.5 or later, you'll have a better experience with this integration. All right, let's go step by step. In the first step, I used HACS, the Home Assistant Community Store, to download the custom integration. If you do not already have HACS installed, you'll need to install it in your Home Assistant server. There are detailed steps on the HACS website, and I'll link to that below. If you read the HACS website carefully and follow the instructions, it's really simple to set up. And once you do, you're going to find a ton of integrations for Home Assistant that are really helpful, like my geolocator integration, which sets Home Assistant's time zone and gathers geolocation data based on your current GPS coordinates. I will note that if you don't want to use HACS, you can copy the custom component folder from the GitHub repo into your Home Assistant configuration custom component folder if you know how to do that kind of thing. However, I will say that using HACS makes it much easier to keep these integrations up to date. Okay, once you have HACS installed, we're going to search for Victron MQTT and click on the integration. This Victron MQTT integration is created and maintained by Tomer. He's done a really incredible job maintaining this integration, adding new Victron devices, and responding to GitHub issues. This integration features auto discovery, sensor data, two-way control, and real-time updates. We'll click Download and get the latest version, then click Download again. Then if we click Settings, you'll see that a restart is required. Click the repair item, then Submit to restart Home Assistant. You can also restart Home Assistant from the Developers tab if you don't see this repair item. After Home Assistant restarts, navigate to Devices and Services. You may see your Victron device auto-discovered, and if not, we'll click Add Integration. Search for Victron MQTT, click the integration, and now we can configure. I'm going to use the IP address of my Serbo GX as I have a DHCP reservation for the device in my router. If you don't know your Serbo IP address, you can check your router client list or access your Serbo UI and navigate to Settings, Connectivity, then Wi-Fi or Ethernet depending on how you connect, and grab your IP address there. Remember those new security settings I mentioned for Venus OS 3.5? Well, now you can choose from 3 profiles: secured, weak, and unsecured. You could choose a profile on the Victron console or remote console in Settings, General, Access and Security, and Local Network Security profile. This selection will affect how you configure this integration. I will note that if you're using the new firmware, but the classic UI, the interface will look different, but you'll find these settings in the same places. I chose unsecured because my Serbo lives on my local network with devices I trust. So I'm using port 1883 and no username or password. If you choose weak or secured, you'll use port 8883, no username, and the password that you set in Venus OS. Do note, this is not your VRM portal password. This is the password you set in the security profile settings. Username can always be left blank for GX devices. This field only comes into play if you bridge your Victron MQTT broker to another broker that requires a username and password, but we're not going to cover that technique in this video. Then you can choose read only or full. I'll choose full so I can read and control my Victron devices. I'm going to select simple naming to keep entity names cleaner, but you'd want to leave this unchecked if you have multiple Venus OS devices so that they can be differentiated. I've chosen to set the update interval to 0 so that we get real-time data, and you can exclude devices here if you want. Then click Submit, and you'll see each of your Victron devices have been created. If you're on older Victron firmware, this is where you'll run into one of those caveats I mentioned. When you add new devices like this, you might have to wait up to 45 seconds to see them appear in Home Assistant. If you want to assign areas, you can do that here, then click Finish. And now you can see each device contains relevant entities, and we're ready to create an energy dashboard. All right, I've created a basic Victron energy dashboard here with a select for the inverter state, gauges, and some sensors. If we want to add another gauge for our auxiliary water tank, we'll edit the dashboard, click the plus sign, find our level entity for the aux tank, give it a simpler name, set the layout, and click Save. Let's say you want to round the display of the state of charge to an integer. You could click the gauge, click the gear, and set the display precision here. This is the dashboard we're currently using in our van. All of this data comes from the Serbo GX via MQTT into Home Assistant and is displayed here in real time. We also created loads of automations to interact with the Victron Electrical System, like turning off the inverter when we leave the van. I've mentioned my past Victron video a few times, the manual method, and that method is doing by hand what this integration does automatically. So if you want precise control of how your Victron system is integrated or how things are named, or you just don't want to install a custom integration into Home Assistant, I'll link to that video down below so you can follow that manual method. However, I think most people are better off using Tomer's custom integration to automatically add their Victron devices to Home Assistant. He's doing an amazing job developing this integration, and he even built the Python library module that serves as the backend to the integration. The integration is already very thorough, but if you find a device that's not covered, be sure to report it, and I'll link to the GitHub repo down below. Tomer has been hanging out in the Smarty Van Discord, and you should too. I'll link to that in the description. I'm also going to link to the Smarty Van community project directory down in the description below. There you can find some really cool projects made by Smarty Van community members that make using Home Assistant in a vehicle even better. And while you're at it, here's another video I think you might enjoy. So subscribe, join, or just say hi in the comments. Until next time, safe travels.